Bonnie. I'm really happy to be here today to discuss CMS's Quality Payment Program Year 2 proposed rule. I do want to kick off with just a reminder that everything discussed today for the 2018 performance year is proposed. CMS is expecting to release the final rule in late October or early November, but everything here today is based on the proposed rule that was released in June. And we'll get started. All right, so first to provide some context of how we got where we are today, I will talk first about how MACRA was signed into a law, really some background on the requirements for this year, and then we'll start digging into the 2018 requirements. All right, so back in April of 2015, the Medicare Access and CHIP Reauthorization Act, or MACRA, was signed into a law. MACRA streamlined existing quality reporting programs such as Meaningful Use Medicare, PQRS, and VM, and it also expanded the potential rewards for adopting risk-based contracts. So MACRA really defined the Quality Payment Program, or the QPP, to really combine the existing quality programs together, as well as expanding the potential risk-based contracts. So there are two defined systems of payment that are now in existence under the QPP, and that is MIPS, as well as the Alternative Payment Model track, or the APM track. Both of these methods allow practices to be awarded incentives for providing improved care and reimbursement for those billing under Medicare Part B. 1.5 years later, after the law was signed in October of 2016, CMS really released the MACRA final rule, which outlined what the 2017 quality payment program would actually look like. So we here at Athena read and summarized the rule to ensure that we would have support in place on January 1st of 2017 so that our clients would avoid any penalties associated with 2017 performance. 2017 was dubbed the transition year, so the bar to avoid penalty was much lower than we originally anticipated. As long as you report one quality measure for at least one patient in 2017, you will avoid the 4% Medicare Part B penalty in 2019. There are small incentives available for those that fully participate, so we are continuing to work to enable full support this year so that we are able to gather those dollars for clients that want them. If you fast forward to June of this year, CMS dropped the QP Year 2 proposed rule that we're really here today to talk about. Again, we at Athena, along with many, many, many others across the industry, immediately got to work digesting all 1,058 pages. Comments were due on August 21st, actually of this week. So Athena did submit comments to support our clients and the industry. Really comments were around reducing complexity of the program, making data easily accessible, and also encouraging CMS to continue to align with other quality programs to really reduce the burden associated. So today we will dig into the top 5 things that you should know about what CMS is proposing for 2018. First, I do want to acknowledge really the acronym soup that exists along with MACRA. I've probably already mentioned many of the acronyms I'm going to define, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page before we move forward. So the top 5 acronyms that exist within the proposed rule and really within the law from MACRA are listed on this slide, and these are really important for everyone to be on the same page on as we're talking through the details here. So I'm going to start actually from the bottom, and CMS has dubbed EC or eligible clinician really as any provider that CMS has defined as needing to participate in the QPP program to avoid negative payment adjustment. The APM and the MIPS tracks are also on here. We talked about those in the last 2 slides, but those are the 2 tracks under the QPP, or the Quality Payment Program. And then at the very top here is MACRA, which we discussed. And MACRA really is the act that outlines the Quality Payment Program. There are a few other acronyms that you might hear me say. I will be defining them as I talk through them, but they're really the category names. So the MIPS track has 4 different categories, and 2 of the 4 categories really have acronyms as names, and so they are the Advancing Care Information category, or ACI, and the Improvement Activity category, or IA. Alrighty, so let's now get into the details and really start to talk about the 5 things that you should know about the MIPS track of the QPP in 2018. First is, when does it start? So in 2018, performance truly does start on January 1st. As proposed, CMS has outlined that the quality category within MIPS is actually going to require a full year reporting period, which is not the same as 2017. In 2017, you could actually report a minimum of 90 days across all MIPS categories, which really allowed clinicians to choose to start to perform in Q4 of 2017 and still report all of their data. In 2018, you do have to report the quality category starting right on January 1st, 2018. So just to reiterate again, we have to prepare now to really hit this January 1st date. 2018 is not a repeated transition year. So while 2017 was truly dubbed a transition year, 2018 is not. There is a higher performance threshold to avoid penalty, and there are also more dollars at stake if you don't perform high enough to really avoid that penalty. And we'll talk about that in more detail as we move forward. But the truth is that we will all only have about 2 months to really read and digest the CMS final rule prior to January 1st. So CMS has said that they will release the rule around November 1st, which really gives us November and December to implement and understand and summarize the final requirements for 2018. And then as long as everything is finalized as proposed on January 1st, everyone will have to start performing against the quality category requirements. All right, so the next thing to know is how to participate. And I know this slide has a lot of text, but I wanted to make sure to share detail for both the MIPS track and the advanced APM track here. So on the left-hand side of this slide, you will see the list of eligible clinician types that CMS has defined as needing to participate in the MIPS track. If you are an eligible clinician type listed on the left-hand side of this slide, you do need to report MIPS. However, there are 3 exclusions that CMS has layered on top of the EC type requirement. So the 3 exclusions from MIPS, so even if you are an EC type, you are excluded if it is your first year billing Medicare, if you actually qualify for the APM track, and I'll kind of go back to that, or 3, if you meet the low volume exclusion that really is associated with the amount of dollars that you bill through Medicare Part B and the number of Medicare patients seen. This threshold is proposed to increase in 2018, and I have another slide that goes into detail, but these are the 3 exclusions for MIPS. To talk a little bit more about the advanced APM side of this slide, on this slide on the right-hand side, we've listed all of the advanced APMs that CMS has deemed eligible for the APM track of the QPP. And APMs are really for providers who can show that a significant portion of their revenue comes from 2-sided risk contracts. They also need to utilize a certified EHR technology. All right, so now to dig in a little bit more about the low volume exclusion that I was discussing on the previous slide. So it is true that as proposed in 2018, fewer clinicians have to report MIPS because of the low volume threshold that CMS has proposed to increase. So in 2017, you had to bill $30,000 and see 100 Medicare patients in order to be eligible for MIPS. In 2018, CMS is proposing to increase those thresholds to $90,000 and 200 Medicare patients. This will mean that fewer clinicians have to report. However, if you are eligible to report, it is important to remember that more dollars are on the line. So if you do meet that $90,000 and 200 patient minimum, you now have 5% of your Medicare Part B at risk instead of the 4% that's at risk associated with this year's performance. Another highlight of the QPP Year 2 proposed rule is that CMS has really focused on flexibilities for small practices. So two of the bigger flexible options that were outlined are on this slide. The first being the small practice bonus. So if you are participating in a group of 1 to 15 clinicians, you do get 5 points added on to your MIPS final score. This is significant. The MIPS final score is out of 100, so this is really an extra 5% for being a small practice. The next piece outlined on this slide affects groups of 1 to 10 clinicians, and CMS has really proposed to roll out virtual group reporting in 2018. So they have been discussing this concept for a few years, but it is now going to be implemented in 2018. And what this allows is any clinician that is in a group of 10 or less clinicians to partner up with others, aggregate their data, and then report. And this should really help to mitigate risk across small group practices. There are two other small flexibilities that CMS outlined in the proposed rule for small practices. One being there is a hardship associated with the ACI category for small practices. And they're also proposing to continue to offer 3 points for small practices only per quality measure, even if you don't report all of your data. So if you're not able to report for the full performance year, you will still get 3 points for each quality measure as proposed if you're a small group. All right, number 3 here is how to report. So in 2017, CMS outlined a concept called Pick Your Pace, just for the 2017 reporting year. And what they did is they gave very clear options for how you could participate in MIPS. In 2018, they have not done that. There is no formal Pick Your Pace methodology. However, we really wanted to summarize here for you at a high level the flexibility that is still available in 2018. So option 1 here is submitting some data just to avoid penalty. So if you submit enough data to really score a MIPS final score of 15 points, then you will avoid the 5% penalty associated with 2018 performance in the payment year 2020. Note that the 15-point threshold is significantly harder than the 3-point performance threshold that exists this year. Eligible clinicians can meet the 15 points without reporting data across all categories, but significantly more is required than in 2017. So in 2017, as I mentioned, you could report a single quality measure with just 1 patient falling into the denominator and still avoid penalty. This means, in theory, you could report 1 measure for 1 day as long as you saw a patient that pulled into it and avoid the penalty. This is no longer the case in 2018. There are many ways to achieve the 15-point performance threshold. So there's a lot of flexibility, but you definitely have to report a lot more data than you do this year. So a few examples of how you could achieve that 15-point threshold is that you could actually report full credit for the improvement activities category. The improvement activities category is worth 15 points. So as long as you report 4 activities, you could actually get your 15 points in that way and be fine to avoid penalty. You could also choose to meet the base advancing care information requirements and then add in 1 improvement activity. And you would achieve more than 15 points if you did that. This would require you to complete your security risk analysis and check that off and have that on file in case you're audited later, but that is an option. A third example of how you could achieve 15 points is that you could elect to meet the base advancing care information requirements plus choose one quality measure where you have gotten at least 3 performance points, and that would actually get you just to that 15-point threshold. All right, so option 2 and 3 that are outlined on this slide are really the ways that you can report to be eligible for a positive incentive. So option 2 basically is for you to report all categories for the minimum time period that CMS has allowed. So basically that is 90 days for improvement activities and advancing care information and the full year for quality. A reminder here that if you are going to do this, the last day you could elect to start reporting ACI and IA would be October 3rd of 2018. The final option on this slide is to report a full year across all categories. This would be true full participation in the program. We do anticipate that CMS is going to continue to expand the reporting periods in the future, so this would really set you up for success for future years when you are going to be mandated to report full data. One note here that I do want to call is that cost is not required for 2018, so you would not have to report that in any of these scenarios. Alrighty. So CMS is really aiming for data completeness in 2018 without trying to overburden clinicians. So that is why they expanded the quality category to a full year, but actually did maintain the 90-day reporting periods for improvement activities and advancing care information. In an effort to truly not overburden providers in 2018, CMS did propose some more flexibility for how much data has to be reported for quality. So they are allowing clinicians to submit 50% of relevant data per measure, but still receive a full measure performance score within that quality category. So what this means in actuality is that even though the full year reporting period exists, as long as you report 50% of the data within that full year, you will still get a full quality score. All right, so number 4 here is how is MIPS scored? So in 2018, you will be measured against 4 categories: quality, advancing care information, improvement activities, and cost. But you will actually only be scored against the first 3. So that's quality, advancing care information, and improvement activities. Quality, just for a review, is based on the PQRS program previously. Advancing care information uses the meaningful use measures. And then the improvement activities category really focuses on care coordination. The category weights, this was a change actually in the proposed rule from what was outlined last year. The category weights are going to remain the same as they did in 2017 for 2018. So originally cost was supposed to actually be factored into your score starting in 2018, but CMS has taken that out of the proposed rule and really stated that cost will be weighted at 0% again. Quality will continue to be weighted at 60%. What this means is that they're giving everyone the year, kind of the whole year to prepare to report cost in 2019. So as I alluded to, cost will be reported and scored in 2019. CMS has outlined that the weighting for cost in 2019 will be 30%, and that really takes 30% from the current quality weight, and so it really bumps quality down to 30% as well. This is really why it is so important for everyone to be preparing and strategizing in 2018 for how they are going to really start to lower their costs starting on January 1st, 2019. All right, so the final point here is what's on the line. All right, so in 2017, as I stated, the penalty is -4%, and that really gets applied 2 years after your performance in 2019. But the most important thing I want everyone to take away from today is that each year, more dollars are at risk. So CMS has really outlined the program to increase over time, really, and then by 2020, having a -9% penalty. The -9% penalty wouldn't be applied until 2 years after 2020 in the 2022 payment year. But as you can see, there is a significant jump in penalties associated with the program over the next couple years. So even if we do continue to see some relaxed eligibility rules and really having fewer people participate, the people that do have to participate are going to have a lot more at stake. On top of that, data will be public. So the CMS-run website, Physician Compare, is a public-facing website that will house all the performance data for anyone that reports MIPS. And anyone can search and read for free without a subscription to this website. So CMS plans to publish reporting performances on Physician Compare for both consumers and other healthcare providers to access. Individual and group performance across MIPS and APMs will be shared. And so you'll be able to access measure-level detail in MIPS for any measures that are reported. In this latest proposed rule, CMS did discuss that they're still looking to determine exactly which measures are going to be published. There was some discussion around whether they would publish measures with benchmarks, without benchmarks or not. And so I do expect that we'll see more detail in the final rule around this. So even though public reporting and the increased penalties do sound scary, Athena is here to partner with you. And something I really do want to highlight is that this year we are guaranteeing that new practices using Athena 1 will avoid any MIPS payment penalty to their 2019 Medicare Part B fee schedule. If we are unsuccessful through our partnership, we will credit the practice the amount of the penalty for the 2017 reporting year. And the reason why we feel so confident having that guarantee out there for this year is really because of our track record with both the Meaningful Use and the PQRS programs. We really have support models and support teams in place to be able to work with clients and coach them to ensure that we're hitting the program requirements. So we feel confident in our ability to help providers to stay on track with all that comes with the Quality Payment Program. Our teams truly measure our success by yours. So we are here to be your partner from the very beginning, and that's starting with onboarding services. And we continue to support you throughout the life cycle with on-demand client services center when you need help. We're also constantly monitoring your activity in the back end to ensure you are on track for success through all of these program requirements. We at Athena are actually evaluated and compensated based on your success, and the people working on these programs are actually based on your success in these programs. So when you do well, we do well. We've come a long way here at Athena in the past 20 years. We started out as just an EHR in the ambulatory space, and since then we've expanded across most of the continuum of care. We're aiming towards supporting the whole continuum of care in the future. Our model of network knowledge and work is focused around driving results for you. So our network gives us visibility to patterns of healthcare providers across the network. From that visibility, we are then able to spot information and connect insights, which we inject as knowledge back into the network. And this really allows us to share information about patients, billing rules, quality programs, as well as identifying at-risk patients. We then take action based on our insights. So whenever we can see that someone is not performing favorably in a particular area, we then take action. We either automate the work or take it on ourselves so that you don't have to. So lastly, I just want to call out athenainsight.com. I would really encourage everyone visit this website. We provide stories here that are really based on data pulled from our network to really drive the story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. Before we begin begin answering audience questions, I first want to remind everyone that you can continue to submit questions through the Q&A on the right side of the console by entering the question and then click on Submit. The first slide I have in front of everyone is now open for anyone to participate in if they like the insights they've heard today and also interested in signing up for our Athena Insight newsletter. So the first question I have here, Emily, comes from Stephanie, and she would like to know, are there specialty-specific measures for each of the 4 categories, or are all specialties required to report the same measures?
Good question. So there are specialty options for the quality category only within MIPS. Within the advancing care information and the improvement activities categories, those requirements are not specialty specific. So for the quality category, you do have specific measures associated with your specialty. And here at Athena, we actually do enroll you in the measures most relevant to your medical specialty in an effort to ensure that you are enrolled in clinically relevant measures to start.
Thanks, Emily. We now have a new poll for the audience to participate in. If they would like to speak with Athena Health representative, they can feel free to take this poll to learn more about our products and services. So the next question I have here comes from Susan, and she would like to know, do you need to capture measures for all of your patients or a certain percentage?
Of course, good question. So I'll kind of speak to this by category because it's a little bit different across the categories. For ACI, you do have to report all of your patients, but because this category is proposed as a minimum of a 90-day reporting period, you wouldn't have to report for all of your patients throughout the whole year. You would just report for the minimum of 90 days if you don't have all the full year data. For the quality category, I'd spoken to this a little bit in the presentation, but I'll just make sure to clarify a little bit because it's complicated. The quality category does have that full year reporting period, which means that CMS is looking for all of the patients that you saw throughout the full calendar year. However, they have introduced the flexibility through the data completeness threshold, where at a very minimum you report 50% of the patients pulling into these quality measures, and you can still get a full score.
Thanks, Emily. I think we have time for one more question. I have another one here. It's from Raymond, and he is curious and writes, is there an option to choose a different reporting period if I'm not doing well in the current period?
Yes. Okay, good question. So for quality, no, because it's that full year reporting period that CMS is looking for. But for improvement activities and advancing care information, CMS has basically stated, at least as proposed, that you can report a minimum of 90 days up to a full year. So there is a lot of flexibility in what they're going to accept for those 2 categories. Based on what comes out in the final rule, Athena will be building our strategy to support this in the best way for our clients. Because there is so much flexibility, we need to determine how we are going to build this so that people are able to perform most favorably.
Thanks again, Emily. And at this time, we must wrap up. If we have not directly responded to your questions, or if you're viewing this webinar on demand, we will follow up with you individually. If you're interested in tuning into this webinar again or passing along to a colleague, the slides and archived presentation will be available on demand tomorrow, at which time you'll be notified by email. Thank you again all for joining today, and we hope to see you again at another Athena Health webinar. Thank you.